Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties, episode 34 of season 5. My name's Lee. I am in Western Australia. Joining me from the radiant realms of Azeroth is Vikas.
I think this would technically be what do you call it? Valager. No, sorry. Yeah. No, the Halls of Honor.
Yeah.
Right, my bad. But I'm from Canberra right now. So,
Yes. I made the joke because we were delayed because Vikas had to raid on Sunday night. He's been very involved in World of Warcraft, which I appreciate and understand. How has all that been going? I've heard people saying that that World of Warcraft, like the new expansion,
it's called World of Warcraft. But
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
No. So just in a quick sort of gaming news, Battle for Azeroth is absolutely shit. Do not play it. It is the worst expansion they've ever come out with.
Is that you saying it, or is that like what other people are saying? Because that's what other people are saying.
Me. No,
Okay.
that's me saying it.
Okay.
It's just horrible.
Okay.
The only reason I'm playing it is because, look, I have friends in that I've been playing with since 2004. No, sorry, 2005.
Yeah.
So right now, it's just hanging out with friends more than anything, waiting till my subscription time runs out.
Fair enough. Well, let's move on from World of Warcraft, even though it's probably much more wholesome and wonderful than the world of politics, which is what we're going to be talking about today. This week, we're going to talk about pandering to Zionists. We're going to talk about the Wentworth by-election, and we're going to talk about stupid
Pandering to agrarian
mother
socialists.
effing agricultural socialists who are my number one hate group. They are despicable, and I will unload on them later.
And they're the worst hate group when you think about it, because they actually hate the producers.
Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, don't get me started. Not yet. I need to save the righteous rage for later. So let's talk about just broadly the Wentworth by-election. Which was last weekend.
Yep, it was on Saturday. Yep.
Saturday.
But in the lead up to that, we had the entire moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
Yes,
thing,
yeah. So
which was a very desperate ploy to try and win the Jewish vote.
Yeah. So So this one is
He's dead. Interesting.
So what?
Wonder what this means.
I know what it means.
Goodbye, Lee. I knew you well.
Hello, Vikas.
You died, not me. You died.
Did I? Oh well. I'm gonna edit that video out later in post. All right. So anyway, yes, pandering. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. So yes, in the lead up to the election, we had ScoMo. I've now totally lost my train of thought. ScoMo going after the Jewish vote, and he announced that they're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, which sounds kind of banal. For a lot of people, it makes sense. And had you asked me 9 months ago, I would have said, yeah, it makes sense, because Jerusalem is kind of the capital of Israel. But since then, I've actually come to understand the issue a lot better, and it's actually a really horrible idea.
No, so it's not a horrible idea. So okay, so here's the thing. If you go by the standard thing is you put your embassy where the center of political power is in that country, right?
Yep.
So for example, the Australian embassy is in, unsurprisingly, DC, right, for America. It's in London for the UK. It's in Paris for France. It's in the capital everywhere, except when it comes to Jerusalem.
Sure.
For Israel. And technically, Jerusalem is both the capital for the Palestinian Authority and for Israel.
And that's the issue.
Yeah. So theoretically, it's been played really stupidly, in my opinion. What they could be saying is we're moving the capital, the Australian capital. Sorry, no, the Australian embassy to the capital of Israel and Palestine. And that would have been hey, look at that. We get to hit two countries with one embassy. Bam, done.
Sure. So that would be better. I think that the issue with that is political, mainly because the people who lap this up also don't like Palestinians and think they're trash and don't want them to have any rights and definitely don't want them to have a state. So that would kind of defeat the purpose of pandering to. I mean, really, it's I mean, Zionism is ethno-nationalism. And
Sure,
the claim,
but
and Israel's claim is that Jerusalem is the eternal and undivided capital. Now, the issue is, it has been divided.
It's been divided historically. I mean, the city is literally in 4 quarters.
Yeah.
The Jews have 1/4 of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going like, this must be a Jewish thing outside of Israel, because in Israel itself, it's not contested that the city belongs to those 4 quarters.
Sure. Yeah, right? But that's not the issue. What the issue is for Benjamin Netanyahu and the rest of them on the particularly on the right. They want to ethnically cleanse the rest of Palestine.
No, that's definitely true. But
so like the fact that East Jerusalem is nominally going to be the capital of any future Palestinian state. Well, they don't want that. They want to get rid of the Palestinians, and essentially by moving the embassies to Jerusalem, essentially it's buying into that. It's saying, well, all of Jerusalem. Not just West Jerusalem, but all of Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and
I don't know about that. But like, here's I'm skeptical of that concept, because like, look, I've been to Israel numerous times, and on the ground there, it's almost uncontested that that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, right? And having the embassies there, they were really, really, with the exception of like Meretz and like the really left wing. They were generally very happy about this idea of the U.S. embassy going into Jerusalem, because they're like, yeah, that's our capital. We've always found it weird that nobody wants to put their embassy in our capital, because Knesset is there, right?
Sure.
The seat of political power in Israel is in Jerusalem, right? It is where their government is all run from. So it's never made much sense that people don't want to put their embassies there. And to be fair, they actually did until what, like it was the 80s or something like that, after a couple of bombings, right, when their security couldn't be guaranteed, that they moved them away. They moved them away based on security concerns. It had nothing to do with symbolism, right? So from my perspective, I think it's probably a good idea that we move it back, just for the question of consistency. I think we keep our embassies in the capital city of that country for a reason. We want to be close to the center of power. I think we're doing a disservice to both the Israelis and the Palestinians by not having it there.
I think if that was shorn free of any context, like it was literally the only thing that was happening, I might be inclined to agree with you. But right now, you've got Donald Trump has anointed his son-in-law, who is a property developer and has known Benjamin Netanyahu since he was a teenager. He's also anointed another guy whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, Jason Greenblatt, who has actually been a guard on the border.
Also Kushner is technically a Jew as well. So I mean, we want to get into that. It's just like
so like these are people who have actually defended with guns illegal Israeli settlements, and these guys are the ones who are in charge of negotiating a solution to the issue. When you have people who are vehemently pro-Zionist, vehemently on the side of people like Benjamin Netanyahu, whose commitment to a two-state solution is tenuous at best. Yeah. I think it's a statement. In that context, moving the embassy to Jerusalem is not like it's not just like a value-free. Just this is the realistic thing. It's making a statement. I think. Like if I was a Palestinian and I saw that happen under the leadership of Trump, under the with the support of Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, all those guys, and Benjamin Netanyahu, like I don't know if I would be like, oh yeah, they're totally going to turn around and give us any sort of respect. They're totally going to turn around and treat us with any sort of dignity.
That's probably true. But the thing is, the Middle East is ancient. It's the best way to describe it. All these things that we look at and we go like, oh no, Trump is doing this. Oh, it's happening in the space of like a year or two. That's really it's a blink of an eye in the grand history of that place. It's not that. I mean, you're talking about people you're talking about people who still talk about 1967 and like the Six-Day War as if it was like something that happened yesterday. So,
Sure, but that's everywhere.
yeah, but
I mean,
look, my point is,
1968 was when Martin Luther King was murdered, and
yeah,
we still talk about that a lot. And 1968 in general, in almost every way, is there's events in there that are still important.
Sure. I said 1967, but yeah, sure.
Sure, but like like that period of time is a period of time that's is relevant to everybody.
My point is, things work very, very slowly there. And despite the fact that Trump and Kushner and a whole bunch of other people want to try and instigate a whole bunch of changes that benefit, that ethno-state component of the Israeli voting base, I don't think they'll be ultimately successful in the 8 years that they have. 6 years that they have now, and I think it'll be even less because I think the embassy is only opening now, I believe. So, you're talking, you're talking about 6 years. So I don't think they'll achieve anything like that in 6 years, and I'll be very impressed if they manage to do that in 6 years. I mean, seriously, the Middle East process is glacial. Would be describing it as moving rapidly. So. Sure. I don't think I disagree with you. I don't think it's going to be that successful. But I think the long-term impact of that embassy being there is that eventually it might lead to better peace talks because it's there in the seat of power for both cities. Sorry, for both countries.
Well, the Palestinian state is only a nominal, like it doesn't exist. I mean, essentially, Palestine is under Israeli
I don't know, man. There's a lot of countries. There's 190 countries that recognize the state of Palestine.
Yeah, but there's no it has if you come up with a definition of what a state is, Palestine would not fit it. It does not have control of its own borders. It doesn't even have borders. Israel does not recognize any border. It's if you look at I just want to say at this point. The person I'm sort of getting most of this information from is Sheldon Richman, who's a libertarian in America, who's written on heaps of stuff, and recently he's been talking a lot about Israel. So if you want to learn more about this stuff, listen to him, particularly on the Scott Hall show.
It looks
but just to be clear, like Israel doesn't say it has a border. So when they talked about the Gaza protests, the Nakba protests a few months ago, they were talking about a border fence. It's not a border fence. If you look at the historic documents of Israel, the founding documents, it doesn't mention any border. 1967 is an armistice line. It's not a border. But if you want to keep that, but if you want to keep that in mind, since 1920, the Balfour Agreement, followed by the British Mandate, followed by the 1967 armistice lines, all of them have never had Arab signatories. Sorry, no. The 67 one had Arab signatories. So 48 did not have Arab signatories, which actually defined borders, and 27, which also defined borders, did not have Arab signatories. So it went forward because the Arabs refused to sign this document. And you're right, it is armistice lines, and nobody even wants to talk about 67 anymore, except some old diehard people, because Arafat and the PA leadership back in 94 in Oslo made a new accord. Right, so 94 is the baseline that the Israelis are working to. If someone wants to work off 67, it's just like, well, you guys came to the peace treaty, so you came to the table, right? And there was this whole land for peace thing that occurred to go back to the 1994 agreed borders, which are vastly different from the 1967 borders. So there's actually like a lot of history that goes behind here that's convoluted and like stuck in all sorts of legal discussions that have occurred between both countries. But you're absolutely right. They're armistice lines, not borders. Yeah. And right? the Palestinian territories are occupied by Israeli troops. They are guarded by Israeli troops. You cannot move from Gaza City to the West Bank. You need to get permission from the Israel government. The West Bank itself has been divided up into security zones. And the Israelis have put fences, walls, through the Palestinian territories. And not to mention all the illegal settlements, which are, so the whole nature. So there is no Palestinian state. It is a military occupation by Israel. So I think it's important, particularly if essentially, I think from a natural rights, property rights perspective, there's really, it's every aspect of the Israeli occupation violates any kind of libertarian property rights.
Agreed. But if you think about it, so Mr. One State Solution, right? If it's a one state solution that they go for, then that's not a popular idea in Israel, because then all of a sudden you've got to give them all property rights and voting rights in Israel, right? And they sit there and go like, well, then all of a sudden all of their Jewish politicians are going to be in a minority, because the Arab population is technically bigger than the Jewish population in Israel.
So I don't have a strong preference either for two-state or one-state. Like I don't have a clear opinion on that. Previously, I've always sort of thought two-state is the better idea. I'm less. I just don't know what's the better solution. But nevertheless, the military occupation is a complete violation of any kind of libertarian principles of rights.
Based on the fact that I don't regard Bibi's position on this necessarily the best one. But I'm leaning towards his idea that it might be better to just bring it all into one state. I'm sorry, that's not his idea. It might be like, the idea to bring all of Israel under one sort of governing structure. Now, I know the Jews won't like that particularly very much, because then they'd go back to being a minority in effectively what they see as their own country.
Yeah.
But you can't really get around the fact that it's either that or military occupation of the locals, right? I don't know how you can justify that as like, I'm here to militarily rule over the indigenous population.
Yeah.
Right?
You could have a two-state solution. You could actually end the occupation. Yeah. Well, you could work towards a two-state solution.
So the problem with trying to agree to a two-state solution is the position of every Arab delegation to begin with has been that there won't be a state of Israel. Right?
That's not true. Even Hamas said they accept the existence of Israel.
No, Hamas has said they want to send Israel into the ocean.
No, I've in the 3 or 4 months that I was looking into this issue when I was still on Facebook. I looked this up. It was like 2015. Hamas said, "Yep, we just accept the existence of Israel."
No. I'm not talking about like 1 or 2 random Hamas people.
We're talking about like the organization put out a statement saying this.
Right, I have trouble believing that. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Unless I missed, from what I remember looking at, but I'm pretty sure Hamas said accepted the existence of Israel.
No, that's tricky. So what they said is, okay, I looked it up. So they said they will consider the statehood of Israel based on the 1967 borders.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it'll be 2 states.
Yeah, it'll be 2 states, but it's based on an unworkable. Like that's like saying, so that's like pretend to put it into an Australian context, right? It'd be like Australians going like, yeah, so we will recognize the sovereignty of the Aboriginal nations based on the 1901 borders.
Well, no, not quite. Essentially, you divide Israel and Palestine. You essentially the Palestinian territories. You get rid of all the settlements, and essentially you turn that into a series of borders. So it'd be Gaza and the West Bank would be a country. That's from what my recollection of the armistice line of 1967. That would be the border.
Sure, but there's been a lot of development since then, and that's why the 1994 negotiation happened, right? So the 1994 negotiation basically ruled certain areas where there had been development in Israeli territory, and so
illegal development. It's against international law to conquer a territory and then start moving your population in there.
Okay, so I have to object to that thing because that's not actually what happens, right? What happens is some American Zionists come into that place, fucking put up a kibbutz, right? They put up the 3 notifications that tell them that they're meant to evacuate this area. They don't fucking evacuate it. The Palestinian Authority doesn't give the Israelis permission to come in, so they have to technically invade to knock it down. They don't want to invade to knock it down because these people fucking vote, right? So it's not.
That is an illegal settlement. I don't see where you're contesting that claim.
No, I'm not contesting. I'm contesting the point that they move in the people. They don't, right? It's not like the Israeli government moves these people in. These people come in.
Well, the Israeli government defends them.
Yeah, they end up defending them because, like I said, they freaking vote, right?
Well, also because, like, at various periods of time, there have been governments, like the current one, who basically want to ethnically cleanse Palestine.
Yeah, that's true.
Some of them would.
I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that. There are elements of, it's not Likud itself, but there are elements to the right of Likud that would definitely agree with that sentiment. But like I said, it's not. Having been to Israel a few times, like, it is not a case that the government is going out there and every time these Zionists come in from, like, particularly the United States, they don't point them to going like, hey, there's some Palestinian territory, go settle that. They never say that.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, that's not necessarily how governments always work when it comes to, like, doing rights violating stuff. Like, sometimes it's just, we'll turn a blind eye to it.
They don't even turn a blind eye. They don't turn a blind eye to it. That's my point, right? They literally... So it is against Israeli law to do what these guys do, right? So what actually happens is, right, these people come in, right? Yeah. They've got more money than this fucking, Palestinian farmer in the middle of nowhere, right? So they pay him off, right? The guy basically buggers off. Technically, it's illegal to Israeli law. It's also illegal to Palestinian law, right? They form a kibbutz. Right, the first thing, I'm not even kidding you. This is like how most of these illegal settlements start up.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I know in the last 8 months there was a Bedouin village that the Israelis were trying to bulldoze to make way for a settlement. So like, just to highlight again, like, the Israelis have put walls all the way through the Palestinian territories to divide it. Yeah, they militarily occupy it. So, like, it's not like, oh, Israel's, like, friendly and let's all be left alone. No, like, that's not the policy of Israel. The policy of Israel is incredibly brutal.
I'd never make that case, but
anyway, we should move on. But yeah, you're making your final point.
You're dead again. What's going on, buddy?
I don't know what's going on. Edit. Hello, am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
You need to sort out that NBN connection of yours.
I'm literally having no issues whatsoever. I don't know what's going on.
All right.
Motherfucking Telstra. All right. So let's move on. That was a good time to move on anyway. Let's talk about... so Wentworth. Kerryn Phelp wins and immediately falls foul of Section 44, my favourite bit of the Constitution. Yeah,
well, I don't know if she has. So, like, the thing is, so this was just
questions. I like questions.
Yeah. So this is just 2 hours ago. So they asked her the question of whether she would vacate her position on the Sydney Council, right? Because she has a position on the Sydney City Council. Now, here's the thing: Sydney City Councils aren't effectively governments recognised under the federal constitution, right? But they are recognized governments as part of various state constitutions, right? So technically it counts as an office for profit under the Commonwealth, right? Which is something that you're only allowed to hold one office for profit under the Commonwealth under Section 44. I think that's the exact word.
It's under the Crown. Office for profit under the Crown.
Yeah, there you go. So the point is, you're only allowed to hold one of those things. Now, Kerryn Phelps technically holds two because she's a councillor and now she's a federal member.
Yep.
So she would technically fall foul of it. So they've asked the question today whether the media has been asking her questions if she's going to vacate that seat. She's also spent a lot of money on getting legal advice whether she can kind of do both. Now, this kind of surprised me. I was pretty sure that the precedent is clearly set on this one, that you can't do it. I was pretty sure that there was a case about it, wasn't there? There's a case about state and holding a state office and running for federal parliament. And I think it was like ages ago.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. It's so high court precedents are not my specialty.
Yeah, if only we had Zeev here.
Yeah.
But I was pretty sure that the precedent on this was clear. But I mean, hey, she's paying lawyers, so maybe we're wrong. So the interesting thing will be if the Liberals do end up taking it to a disputed return, based on the fact that she's indicated that she's going to hold on to that Sydney Council position.
Yep.
But I think that like that is one of the better things that we put in our constitution, and it's surprisingly prescient of our
prescient.
Prescient, yeah. Sorry, it's surprisingly prescient of our politicians, I guess, like our founding fathers.
Yep.
I mean, the biggest thing our founding fathers technically cared about was keeping the brown people away from this country. It was literally the first act they passed.
Yep. Well, that's how it usually rolls with constitutions. It's like, let's come up with all these rights and then let's get rid of the brown people. Are there any other comments you wanted to make about Kerryn Phelps and
well, there's a lot we can talk about on how the Liberals lost that seat, because I found it hilarious. So,
go for it.
I mean, if you really want to get into it, so it's the safest seat. It's one of the safest seats that the Liberals have held. In fact, I think the only times it's gone elsewhere has been when they're... so it's not as if it hasn't been held by Liberals. It's only been held by Liberals as they got kicked out. Sorry, it's been held by independents as they got kicked out of the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
But before the Liberal Party was even a thing, it was voting for, like, it was the one that voted for it was one of the few seats held by the free trade party.
Yep.
So I mean, for as long as its history has been there, it's been pretty much on the economically right wing side of.
Yeah, basically, it's been the one of the major right wing party as it sort of evolved over the years. So
yeah. But like, to be perfectly honest, despite like all the people saying like, oh, Wentworth is completely the base of the Liberal Party, I sit there and go like, if that's the base of the Liberal Party, you're basically saying the base of the Liberal Party is plutocrats and bankers that want to jack up electricity prices to stop climate change.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's Wentworth in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most notable person who held the seat prior to Malcolm Turnbull was John Hewson. That was his seat. So it's always kind of been inner city, rich people, sort of liberal.
Not rich, super rich. Like, this is
rich,
yeah. I mean, if you really want to get into it, like, this is where Waverley College is like one of the most exclusive and elite schools in the country. It's where I mean, seriously, that place is known for its yacht club. Like, it's a school with a yacht club. So
yeah.
I mean, it's on, like, the level of wealth that is there is on a whole other level.
Yeah.
They're incredibly wealthy. They make up a large chunk of donations for the Liberal Party. And I was surprised by people saying like, "Oh, we've lost the base." Like, sorry, the people coming like from that area of town were like, "We are the base of the Liberal Party." It's just like, and you've lost the base. And I sit there going like, I don't think that was ever the base.
Yeah,
Wentworth is like the 1% of even the Liberal Party.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's not Howard's battlers. Like, I mean, ultimately, in the nature of the system we have is essentially you're fighting over the kind of middle class-ish people, and they're the ones who secure you the election. And Kerryn Phelps, from what I can tell, is like she fits the demographic for the seat that she won. That is, she's a doctor. She was the head of the Australian Medical Association. Like it's she's not like this kind of raging Greens member. Like she's, from my observation anyway, she sort of sits well within the kind of demographic of that seat.
She does, yeah. I mean, like, she's pretty much in favor of lower taxes, but also in favor of more regulations for environmental stuff. So
yeah,
she's very much in the mold of what a liberal from Wentworth would look like.
Like Malcolm Turnbull.
like Malcolm Turnbull. She's no worse than Malcolm Turnbull. In fact, she's probably closer to Malcolm Turnbull than Dave Sharma was.
Yep.
But the other big thing is, so from my perspective, like, people sit there going like, it's not representative of the country, and I sit there going like, yeah, it's not representative of the country at all. I agree, right? But what it is representative of is that people are sick of like the political infighting of the party that is in power at that point in time.
Yep.
Right? If you take a look at all the polls, the trust level on Bill Shorten is low, right? Way lower than it's like. Let me put it this way: our mate Scott Morrison, right? And I say our mate as in like mate, right? Scott Morrison is technically more trusted. Technically more popular than Bill Shorten. And let's be honest, if the Liberals weren't such a shit show, I don't think anyone would even be looking at Bill Shorten or Labor.
Yep.
In fact, most of the time, right? I see left-wing people posting all these pro-Labor articles all the time, right? Except, are you, like, seriously, if you go out to pubs and stuff like that, are you hearing about how great Labor is, or are you hearing about how shit the Liberals are?
Yeah. And in some ways, I mean, that's the statement has always been, oppositions don't win elections, government loses elections.
That's not, okay, so that's generally spoken about, like, that's spoken from, like, a position of ego from certain parties, right? And that's true. Some parties can lose because of the shit show that they've created. But I always end up using Gough Whitlam as an example of this. Gough Whitlam technically won based on that fucking slogan that everybody remembers now. It's time, right? He actually made a case for it. As much as I didn't like Fraser, right? He made a case to replace what's his face? Gough Whitlam.
Yep.
As much as I don't want to admit it, and as much as it probably pains everyone to admit it, Tony Abbott made a case for the Liberals in 2013, right? It was on energy policy. He said, we have a better energy policy, right? We're not going to go down this shit show of subsidizing, like taking money from you in the carbon tax and then giving it back to you. It makes no sense, right? So, I mean, I sit there and I go, like, the Liberals are in an absolute shit show. Bill Shorten is not going to make the case for Labor, but he'll get in. I have a suspicion we're about to go probably in the next 6 years to see two of the shortest serving term governments.
Probably.
I think Labor will get in, and they'll have no idea what they want to do except pass, a carbon tax because it's an article of faith for them, and they think it's a vote winner, right?
Well, it is amongst certain groups of people.
Yeah, it is amongst the Wentworth group of people.
Yep.
So if you want to turn Wentworth into a safe Labor seat or a nominal Labor seat, yeah, it's probably the best way to go. But to be perfectly honest, that solidifies Labor as the party of the exceedingly rich and the unions.
Yeah.
well, it's like
in some ways that's what that is their thing there. Essentially they're trying to fend off the Greens in the inner city. And then,
champagne socialists and socialists.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, as the Liberal Party seems to be marking itself on the style of the middle-class worker that hates migrants.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, the joys of politics. How about we... is there anything else you wanted to add to that before we moved on?
Nah, I think I'm done.
Let's talk about my favourite group of people, agricultural socialists. I love them, and I'm not filled with existential hate for them and want to see them to die in a grand fire that consumes their souls as well as their bodies. So we've got our good friend David Littleproud, who, if I recall correctly, is the leader of the National Party. Hang on.
Yeah, the leader of the National... He's not the leader of the National Party.
Isn't he? No, he's
not the leader.
Okay. I thought he was. He sits with the National. He's a National, and he's the minister.
He's a National.
He's a National on more than one level. He's the federal agricultural minister, and oh my goodness, he is just awful. So he talked about the stunts of the. Basically, he hates the supermarkets. He hates cheap milk, and he wants us to pay more for milk because the farmers. Okay. Yeah. Apparently, in his view, and I quote, "The fact is the milk market needs real reform. It's not working." So
who's it not working for?
Well, that's the good question. So he Well, here's another quote. Mr. Littleproud said the milk market was clearly broken, and the big supermarkets could no longer wash their hands and claim that the fact farmers are going broke is nothing to do with them. So,
what's it got to do with them?
That's you and I, Vikas. We are sensible. We think about this from the perspective of, how do markets actually work? What do
it's not about markets working, right? Like, okay, so this is a I guess you could say esoteric question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't get paid as much as Bill Gates, so obviously I can't live like Bill Gates does.
Yep.
Should Bill Gates wash his hands of the problem that I'm not living as good as Bill Gates is?
Well, Comrade Littleproud says yes. Sorry, no, he cannot wash his hands.
No, he can't. Yeah, he's got a moral responsibility to make sure that I live as good as he does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's the crux of this. It's basically the politics of envy taken to its final conclusion.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Which is weird because usually you see this kind of thing from communists.
Yes. Well, but communists are bad because, I don't know, free speech or something,
No, communists are bad because they stop you from saying black people are bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, where to start with this? Oh my goodness, I just don't know. Lord, give me strength. Okay, so,
I
basically it seemed, the Nationals as a whole, so Barnaby, the rest of them, all of them are committed to propping up a particular business model of their members and stopping any large organization from essentially forcing them to reform. Because the thing is, right, so we've probably talked about this before on the show, somebody's making money from selling milk to Coles where they sell it for $1 a litre. I mean, that's the reality. Like, if it wasn't actually feasible for somebody to do it, they could not do it. So essentially what you've got is one group of farmers who are upset that a different group of farmers are managing to do their job but better.
I don't think it's the farmers that's the problem. It's the wholesalers, right? So what happens is the wholesalers pick up milk from lots of sources and then sell it to the Woolies and Coles, right?
Yeah.
And Woolies and Coles, being the biggest purchasers, obviously have better bargaining power and therefore manage to get a bigger slice than they normally would. But even if you look at it, the biggest margins on those milk sales isn't Coles and Woolies. It's technically the wholesaler. So if you really want to get shitty at someone, get shitty at the wholesaler.
Yeah. So the thing is that the reason it involves other farmers is that other farmers can actually afford to produce milk at that level. So, somebody can sell milk at a price that the processors can then on-sell to Coles and Woolies that results in $1 a litre, right?
Yeah.
So if it wasn't actually feasible for a farmer to do that, they just couldn't do it. It just wouldn't be done. Be it the Coles and Woolies then go overseas and import milk, or they just sell milk at that price. Because, for the most of our lifetimes, milk has not been $1 a litre.
No.
So really, ultimately, these farmers who are upset, and who the Nationals are pandering to, ultimately they are upset that they have competitors who are doing their job better, who can afford to sell milk at a low price. Now, for Coles and Woolies, they're not making buckets of money off selling milk. I imagine the margin on the milk that they sell is just absolutely minuscule. It would be the most razor thin margin, but they just sell it in massive volumes. I mean, broadly speaking, groceries are not. If you want a big margin, you don't sell groceries. You sell something else.
So I think Coles and Woolies, basically, I think their reports was their profit margin across the entire business is technically only about 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
Right. But that's an aggregate across the entire thing.
Yeah.
Right. There are some loss leaders and there are some things that make huge
and milk's going to be on the loss leading side as opposed to whatever else that they sell. But so that's a win for consumers. Ultimately, we all benefit from having cheaper milk. It means we can buy other things. It's good for us as individuals and it's good for the economy because that's how you get economic growth. You sell things at a cheaper price, which gives you more money that you can go buy other stuff. Then you get farmers who, some of them are struggling because of drought conditions. That sucks. We talked about this quite recently, but ultimately, the market has a way. It's a business model. It is a business model, and it may be failing. And if it is failing, it should fail. Except you have politicians who are trying to prop it up.
Well, the funny thing is, I keep hearing like, oh, you can't really live without farmers, and I sit there going like, then why do they need so much protection?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? I sit there going like, you wouldn't need to protect the farmers if you thought that they were, that they were so needed. Right? You don't need to protect things that are doing well.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why like, as we open this up, I said like, protection agrarian socialists are the worst kind of people because they technically hate the producers.
Yeah.
Right? They're basically saying,
and they ultimately hate consumers. Because like,
they hate the consumer.
They don't want us to buy cheap milk. They want us to buy their expensive milk, and they think we're bad and hate farmers because we look after our own bottom lines. I mean, that's ultimately
funny thing
milk
is,
allows people to live better lives, and apparently, I should be sacrificing my lifestyle so that some farmer who's on marginal land that's probably never going to be great land should continue to be able to farm. Like, are you serious?
Yeah. So my favorite thing is they said they wanted a milk levy of something like 2 cents. Was it 2 cents per liter or something like that?
I think it was a lot more because I mean the major brand, so like Coles and Woolies for their own branded milk started selling their 3-liter bottles with like a 30-cent or 20 cents extra. It was like $3.20 or $3.30.
Oh yeah, and I remember
that was going
this,
towards to go to dirt farmers. And apparently that's not good enough for our comrade Little Proud. Comrade Little Proud says that's slippery.
Well. There's no way of accounting. There's no way of accounting exactly how much of that ends up back there. And to be perfectly honest, I don't buy my milk from Costco. So I buy my milk from Costco, not from Coles and Woolies, because Costco sells it even cheaper than Coles and Woolies.
Yeah.
So I'm going for even lower. So like Costco, so Woolies, Aldi, and Coles sells it for like $1 a liter, I think. Mm-hmm. Costco sells it for about 82 cents.
Nice. If I was selling milk, actually I'd buy that milk.
Yeah, and my point is like Costco, as far as I can tell, Costco gets their milk from the same place that those places get it from.
That's it, yeah.
Clearly, I mean, Costco's willing to take a bigger loss lead on that than most places.
Yeah. Or they've just reformed their practices to be able to sell milk more cheaply. I mean, that's ultimately like all of these things are businesses. Ultimately, all of them have economies of scale.
Yeah, they sell milk about 3 liters at a time. So
yeah, so
so there is that.
Yeah, so ultimately that's like.
And you're dead again.
What? Am I back? Am I back, Vikas? Have you got me?
And you're dead again.
Am I back? Have you got me?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
You're back.
All right. This is going to be real fun to edit.
Fun times. Well, anyway, I think we've arrived on socialist for.
Is there anything good on the world, Vikas? Please tell me there's something good on the world now that we've talked about agricultural commies.
I don't know. Dennis Rodman's talking about North Korea. Like, they're talking about potentially putting Dennis Rodman as the ambassador to North Korea. That'd be pretty fun.
Oh, actually, no. The thing you mentioned before that made me happy was Fraser Anning's been dumped by the Qatar Australia Party.
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah, Fraser Anning being dumped. Actually, we can talk about that for like the next 2 minutes. That's fucking hilarious. Okay. Yeah, I'm sitting there going like, so apparently he was dumped for being too racist, and I'm sitting there going like, wait, hang on. So he comes out and defends the final solution speech. And also talks about how, white Australia policy wasn't... Sorry, not white Australia policy. What did Qatar say? Qatar was defending everything Anning said in his opening speech.
Yeah.
Right? And now he's dropped him for being too racist in his opening speech. I was like, wait, are you kidding me? It's just like, you defended that speech, so...
Yeah.
All right.
At the time, he described it as solid gold.
There you go. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
I
mean, there's something about monoparty politics in Australia and just the continual inability of anybody to keep their parties together that I just enjoy. It's just funny. So.
Well, I would personally like it if the LDP could actually get its shit together. Like, I mean, seriously, I was almost tempted to say, like, okay, so you've done this anti-PC thing, and like, going on with this whole Sarah Hanson Young thing, going, oh, it's getting more members. And you look at the vote, and it's just like, where the fuck are these members? Where are they voting? I mean, clearly they're not in Wentworth. Clearly they're not in other by-elections that you've run in.
Yep. What did they?
And like, it's just like, they got
I
0.4 of the vote in Wentworth.
Right.
But you know, and the funny thing is, they said like we had a large amount of success in Longman, and it's just like Longman had like 1% of the vote, and I'm just like, hey, if you're telling me you're going through all this trouble for 1% of the vote, right?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like, you know, at least how the Senate used to operate, you could get in on that sort of margin, but probably not anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's all I know is I look at the strategy, and it just makes me cry, going like, you're alienating potential voters, and you're not winning any of these edgelords that you're going for. Sorry, but that's the hard truth. And if you're you know, I feel like we should get probably Humphreys or like someone like that on here to explain themselves, but I think they're sick of trying to explain themselves to us.
Yeah, possibly. All right, well, we'll leave it there for this week. Thanks everybody for joining us. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all the rest of that stuff, and we'll be back again with more discussion next week.